Hey, what's going on, guys? So a couple weeks ago I created a Deno crash course, Deno, however you want to pronounce it. And in that video we talked about what it is, we looked at some of the things like the standard library, some of the fundamentals, and ultimately we built a REST API using products, and we used Deno along with the Oak minimalistic middleware framework. So this is what we ended up with. I have it on GitHub here. And let me just open it in VS Code. So basically we have some routes, okay, all of our routes to create this CRUD API, and in our controller we have a products TS file where we just have hard-coded products here. And then we have all of our functions which just deal with these hard-coded products. Now in this video I want to turn this into an API that works with a Postgres database instead of just working with hard-coded data. Another thing we're going to do is work with Denon, which is basically like a node mon, where we don't have to keep restarting our server. We can it'll just watch it. It's basically node mon for Deno. So we're going to set that up as well. Now, in order to follow along, you need to have Postgres installed. Okay, so we will be using the Postgres, where is it? The Deno Postgres library here, or package, to connect to our database, but you do need to download Postgres, which you can get from postgresql.org/download. Choose your platform, and that comes with a tool called pgadmin, which I have open here in my browser. And this is a relatively new machine, so I just installed Postgres, and we might as well get this set up before we start going. So I have right here, you'll have a default Postgres database, and you'll have a default user called Postgres, which I'm not going to use. So you can use that if you want. I'm going to go ahead and first create a new user or a login role. So I'll say create login or group role. I'm going to call mine Brad. You can call yours what you want. Under definition, we'll put a password. I'm just going to use 1 through 6 and save. And now under database, we'll say create a database. And I'm going to call this, let's call this Deno API, and we're going to use that Brad user here, which I actually need to change the privileges on. So under here where I created Brad, I'm going to go to properties, privileges, and just set all of these to yes, like that. Okay, so now in our Deno API database, if we go down to schemas, you'll see tables. Okay, we don't have any tables, so let's create our products table. So we'll call this products, and the owner, sorry about that, the owner is going to be Brad or whoever you want it to be. And then under columns is where we can create our schemas. So we're going to have, first of all, an ID, which is going to be the type of serial, which is going to be an auto increment number, and that's going to be our primary key. And then we're also going to have, so with our products we have a name, a description, and a price. So let's say name, and this will be the type of text. Let's create a description, and this will be the type of text. Looks like this one didn't take text. Okay, and then we'll have one more, which is going to be the price, and for that I'm going to choose numeric. And that should do it. So let me just make sure that this is serial, primary key, good, so we'll save. And now our database should be all set to connect to and work with. So we're going to first, before we do anything with the database, we're going to set up Denon. And to do that, let's actually go back to this page here. So this is deno.land/x/Denon. And to install, we just want to grab this Deno install command. Make sure you don't grab the money sign, just from here. And we'll copy that, and we're going to go down into our terminal and paste that in. I already have it installed, so it should be quick. And you might have to just add the path command. It'll show you here if you do. Now, if you get an error, it's because your version of Deno isn't up to date. The latest version is 1.0.4 at this time. You might have 1.0.1 or something like that. Just go ahead and run Deno upgrade, and that will install the latest version. Okay, and then run that command again, and Denon should get installed just fine. Now, if I run, let's say Denon --help. So what we want to do is run this init, which will create a config file for us. So let's do that. Let's say Denon --init. That'll create a Denon.json file. And this works very, very similar to NPM scripts. So you can see we already have a start script here that's going to run app.ts, which I don't have. I'm using server TS. But instead of just using a string here, I'm actually going to make this an object because there's some other things I want to do. So the command that I want this start script to run is going to be Deno run and then server.ts. Now, as far as permission goes, we need something like this, allow -net and allow env, because we're going to use env variables or environment variables. However, with this JSON file, we can just add an array of allow, and if we want env, we can add that. If we want network or net, we can add that. And then we can actually create environment variables in here. So we'll say env, and then let's have an object here, and let's have a port environment variable. And I'm going to set this to 8000 for now. So we should be able to access within the file. You can also add things like if we go under the scripts here, we can add in like logger. And you can look at the documentation for the different values, but for instance, we could use debug here and set that to true if you want more information spit out. You can also add global environment variables outside of your scripts. So if we go up here and say like env, and then we can say, you know, whatever you want. So something like token, and set that to, I don't know, ABC, something like that. You can use that in all your scripts. So take a look at the docs if you want to learn more about it, but this should work. So let's go down here and let's run Denon, not Deno, but Denon, and then start. Okay, so you can see now it's running on 5000. Now this here, starting the process, gives you the process ID and stuff like that. That's because of this logger that we have. If you don't want to have this, in fact, I'll just get rid of this. And if we restart this now, we shouldn't see that extra information. So it's up to you if you want to keep that. But now this will just continuously watch our TypeScript or JavaScript files, and we don't have to keep restarting. So let's go into server TS, and you can see I have the port hard-coded right now. So I'm just going to change this to Deno.env, and then we can use .get, and we can get our port. And then I'll just put or 5000 if that's not found. Now down here we're going to get a TypeScript error because this is actually going to be a string. So instead of setting this to the port variable directly, I'm just going to add the plus sign in front of it, and that'll turn it to a number. So that should work. So now if I restart this, actually I didn't even have to restart it, but you'll see now it's running on 8000, which is this right here, which I'm actually going to change to 5. I just wanted to show you that it is coming from here. So if we restart now it's 5000. Okay, so we should be all set with that. And again, you can access the global environment variable here, this token, if you want, the same way, this env.get. But let's go ahead and start with our database stuff. So I'm going to go into my controller. And actually, before we do that, let's create a config file in the root, config.ts. And in the config is where we want our database credentials. So I'm going to just create an object called dbcreds. And let's set the user. So you want to set this to whatever you set your database user as. I used Brad. And then whatever you used for the database, I used Deno API. And password. And the host name, which is going to be localhost, and the port, which by default is just 5432. And then we just want to export. I'm not going to export as default, just in case we you put something else in here. So we'll just export dbcreds like that. All right, so now if we go back into our controller, now you could do, there's many different ways you can do this. We might actually do another video where we clean it up and we create like a service or something like that, but I'm just going to use the client directly in our controller file. So if we go to, let's see, our package here, so this is Deno Postgres. Remember, there's no npm install or anything like that. We're just going to use the client right here. We're going to import it from the Deno land URL. And then what we can do is create a new client, and we can connect, and then we can run queries off that client. All right, so let's go back here, and I'm going to go ahead and import that client, and then I also want to import my DB creds. So that's going to be from the what is it, config.ts. Okay, and you might have a red squiggly line under this if it's not cached on your machine if you've never used it, but that'll fix after you run the file. So let's see, the next thing we want to do is initialize our client. Now, we're not going to be using this stuff, but I'm just going to keep it here, or otherwise we're going to just get a bunch of errors, but we'll get rid of this, we'll get rid of it after. So let's initialize our client. So client equals new client, and we want to pass in our DB creds. All right, and then what I'm going to do first, instead of doing the get products first, I want to be able to add a product, just so we have some data in there to work with, because it's a little weird how we work with fetching products or fetching data. We have to do a little bit of trickery. So let's go down to add product to this route here. So if you watch the initial crash course, it's going to help you a lot because you'll know what's going on here. Basically, we have, our request and response. We are getting our body, so we can get the whatever's sent in the body through here. We're checking to just make sure there's something in the body. If there's not, we'll send back this error, 400 error with no data. I format all my responses with an object with a success value and either a message or data. Okay, it depends on what we're sending. Down here, if there is body data, we can get it from body.value. We generated an ID because we weren't using a database, so I just used the UUID from the standard library, and we pushed it onto the array above, set a status of 201, which is okay, and created, and then we sent back the data. We sent back in the body the product and the data. So we're going to change things up a little here. I am going to keep, let's see, I am going to keep this right here just to make sure there's a body, but we'll get rid of everything in the else. All right, and then another thing I'm going to do is extract, let's say, const product, because the body right here that we get has a type and a value. We want the value, so the value is going to be what we want as a product. So we'll set that, and then let's go down into this else here, and we're going to use a try catch, and we want to await. This is where we're going to start to work with the database, so we're going to await client.connect. So this, you can see this in the docs right here. So we want to connect, and then we can go ahead and use client.query, and we can make queries. All right, so we want to connect, and then let's say const result. Now remember, we're adding a product, so let's say await client.query, and inside here we're going to put in our SQL query, which is going to be insert into. And I do have an SQL crash course if you don't know much about it, but we're going to say insert into products, and we want to insert name, description, and price. So the values for that, I'm going to use placeholders here, so we'll just do money sign 1, money sign 2, money sign 3, and then we have a second parameter here of what we want to put in those money signs. in sequential order, which is going to be the product.name, which comes from the body, right? Because up here we set the product to the body that comes in. So we need to send a name. We need to send, let's say, product and description. And then we also have product.price. I'm actually going to put these on a separate line like that. Yeah, all right, so that should insert those. Now, once that happens, once we have this result, we're going to go down here and set our status. So let's say response.status. We'll set that to 201, which means created. And then let's set our body. So our response body is always going to be an object with a success value, in this case true, and then the data is going to be the product that was submitted. All right, now in the error here, okay, so that's in the try. If something goes wrong, you could handle this in many different ways. I'm just going to set the response status to 500, which is a server error. It's kind of a generic response. And then we'll set the body to success, and that's going to be false because obviously something went wrong. And then for the message, I'm just going to set whatever we get from that error. I'm going to just add toString onto it so it displays as a string. So whatever that error is, whatever is here, we'll go ahead and spit that out in the API. Now I'm also going to add a finally onto this. So on try catches you can add a finally. This happens after everything is done. We just want to say await, take our client, and call .end. Okay, so that's how we're going to handle adding products. So I'm going to save this, and let's see, we have no errors down here. Now let's try this out. So I'm going to go to Postman. Let's just get rid of all this stuff, and since we're adding a product, we're going to do a post request. And if you didn't watch the first tutorial, you can see in our routes here I have the post going to API version 1 products, and that's calling add product, which is what we just worked with. Okay, so in Postman, let's say post to HTTP localhost and port 5000 / API version 1 products. And if we just send that with nothing, we should get false, no data. Let's go to body and then raw JSON, and we're going to go ahead and send a name, product name. Let's say product 1. Let's send a description. This is product 1, and then a price. Let's say $29.99. Let's send that, and we get back a 201 created response, and we get success true, and we get that product. Okay, now we can double check this if we go to pgadmin or to your terminal if you want to use the SQL terminal, and go to tables, products, and let's choose from here, where is it, view, edit data, all rows, and there it is. So we have product, yep, so product 1, we have a description, ID is 1, which is a serial, which is an auto increment. So we should be able to add another one. I'm just going to change this to 2, and we'll say this is product 2, and let's change this to 39 and send, and we'll do one more, 3, say 99.99 and send. Okay, so now if I go back to pgadmin, and we should be able to just click play here, and there we go. So we have 3 products in our database. So now that we are able to add them, let's look at fetching them. So we'll go up to get products, right? So we have our get products, and initially here we're just returning our static array up here, which isn't what we want. So let's get rid of this. And what we want to do is add a try catch, and we want to connect. So let's say await client.connect, and then let's create a result, so similar to what we've done. Now this isn't marked asynchronous, so we just have to do that here. Even though there's a top level await in Deno, since this isn't a function, we need to have the function asynchronous. So for the result, we're going to await the client query, and let's say select all from products. Now I want to show you what this result gives us because this is really important. Let's make this bigger here, and as far as a response for now, I'll just say hello. Doesn't really matter, I just want to show you this log. So let's go make this request. So this time we want to make a GET request to this. We just get hello, but let's look down here, and it's kind of weird how this works. So it gives us two things. It gives us rows, but if you look at rows, it's just the values, right? It's not the object. We want it to be formatted like this, so an array of objects, and that's not what rows gives us, so we can't simply return rows in our response. Now we do have this row description, which has a columns array and column objects, and it has the field, you know, the actual field as a name property. So we have to do a little bit of JavaScript magic here to get this kind of format, and we're going to do that with map. So, because it's really important to show you guys what that result gives us, because we can't just return, you know, result.rows. We have to kind of change things up a little bit, or mimic it. Not mimic, what the hell's the word I'm looking for? Manipulate it. So let's initialize, and again, there's so many different ways you can do this, but I'm going to set this to, let's say, const products equals a new array. And then what we'll do is loop through or map through the rows. So let's say result dot rows. Remember, we have rows, which is just the values, and then we have the row description, which is those columns that I showed you. But we want to first map through these, and let's say for each product, and then I'm going to construct an object for each one, because that's what we want, is an array of objects. So let's set this to new object, and then we'll take, let's say, result.row description, and we want to get the columns. Remember, there's that columns array. We want to map through that, and we're going to put some parentheses in here, because in here we want the element itself and the index, and we want to take, for each one, we want to take object with the element dot name. Now what I mean by the name is down here. You can see we have name, we have name description, so we're just getting whatever that field is, and we want to set that equal to whatever product this is. So just put the index, and this error here implicitly has any, oh, we can just set this to any. Alright, now the next thing we want to do is just add on to the this products array right here. So we're mapping through, we're constructing it how we want, which is similar to how this is, just an object with the different fields. So now we want to go right under this line, and let's take that products array that we created and let's push onto it, and we want to push on the object. Okay, so now we'll have an array of objects, and then we can go down here where we have our response body, and we don't want hello, we want an object with success true, and then the data that we want to send is going to be products. Okay, it'll be our manipulated data. And then here I'm just going to set a response status of 500, response body of success false, and as far as the message goes, we'll take the error and just say to string, like that. And then let's add the finally as well. And for the finally, we just want to await and then call end on the client. All right, so let's save that and let's see how this works out for us. So we'll go back here and let's send. There we go, we get success true, and we have our data, which is constructed correctly. So this data is now coming from the database. It's not coming from, that hard-coded data, which I'm going to end up deleting soon. So now that we can do that, let's do the single product, which is going to be pretty similar. Let's see. So before we used filter just to kind of filter out the hard-coded data. So I'm going to get rid of all this. Just start over here. So first thing we'll do is a try catch. We'll just add our finally here as well. So in the try here, we're going to await to make sure that this is a sync. Okay, so sync, and now we're going to await and connect. Okay, and then we'll have our result and await the client, where we're going to call a query, and that query is going to be select all from products where, and then we want to get it where the ID is equal to, and we're going to use a placeholder here, and then the second parameter is going to be params.id, which is going to be params.id, which is going to come from here. It's going to be whatever's passed in to the URL. All right, so now we have this result. This is going to give us something similar to what we had down here, so we're going to have to kind of manipulate it a little bit. But before we do that, let's make sure that there is an actual product. So the way we can do that, or one of the ways we can do that, is by saying if the result.rows, remember the rows is the values, if that rows.toString is equal to nothing, then that means that there's that ID isn't found. So in this if statement, here, I want to send a response.status of 404, which means not found, and a response body of success false. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was still recording. So success false, and for the message, now we know what this is. This means that it's not there, so I'm going to put some backticks and just say no product with the ID of, and then we'll go ahead and just put in our params.id. So that'll be our message, and then we do want to return after this as well. Okay, now in the else, meaning that there is something found, then we're going to do something similar to what we did above. I'm going to initialize a product. It's not going to be products, it's just a single product. We'll say product any and set that to new object. So we're setting this to an object, not an array, because we're getting a single object. And then we're going to take result.rows, map through just like we did above, say for each product. Let's then take result.row description and take the columns array and map through that. Okay, so in here we want some parentheses, and we want to say in here for each element and index. Then we want to take the product, and then the index we want is going to be the element name, which will be, name, description, price, ID, whatever. We want to set that to the current product, like that. All right, and then we can go under that map that we just did, and we can set our response.body to success true, and the data is going to be that single product. Okay, and then in the error, I'm just going to copy from what we did up here with the error. Actually, I'll copy the finally as well. So just replace that. There we go. Get an extra one in there. Okay, So let's save this and let's try it out. So if we go and we make a GET request to product/1, we get the first product. If we do /11, we know there isn't one. We get no product with the ID of 11. Okay, so that's working good. So now we can add, we can get all of them, we can get a single product. Now let's move to the update. So our put request down here is where we're doing our update. So again, we were using .find on the array, but we want to just get rid of all this. Let's see, else, that ends here. Yeah, so we'll just get rid of everything in the update. Now, I want to check if a product exists. So a short way to do this would be to use the get product that we already created. So let's say await get product, and we can pass in here params, and we want the ID. So let's say ID, set that to params.id, which is getting passed into the route, and then we also want to pass in the response like that. Now this will give us a status, so we want to just check to see if the status is 404. So we'll say if response.status is equal to 404, that means that the product isn't found. So we'll set the response.body success is going to be false, and the message we can actually just get from what we sent right here. Where is it? Is this get? No. So right here, if it wasn't found, we sent this message telling us no product with the ID of. We can grab this message from the response. So right here, let's say response.body.msg, and that should just kind of carry that message down to here. And as far as what we want to respond with as far as a status, let's say response.status is 404, which is not found, and then we just want to return. Okay, actually I don't want to use semicolons. All right, so that takes care of if it's not found. Now let's do an else. And now we want to update, so let's const body await request.body, which gives us an object that has the type and the value. The value is going to be the actual product that's getting submitted, just like when we did the add. So let's say product equals the body.value, and we'll check and see if it has a body. We could probably copy this from the add actually. So right here, where we check this, and then we have this else. This else ends right here, so I'm going to grab this. Okay, so it's from this if statement down to here, and we'll put that right in there. Okay, because we want to check to see if it has a body. If it doesn't, we're just going to leave that, no data. In the else here, we're going to connect, except we're not doing an insert. We're going to replace what we have in this query with an update. So let's say update the products table, and we want to set name to a placeholder, and we want to set description equal to a placeholder, the price equal to a placeholder, and then of course we want to specify a where clause, or else they're all going to get updated. So where the ID is equal to another placeholder. And then in here we're replacing name, description, and price, but we also need to replace this with what we want for the ID, which comes from the params, right? So we want params.id here. So that'll do the update, and then as far as a response, it'll be 200 true, and we'll send the product. Yeah, we'll just send the product that was updated, and then here we can leave that, we can leave that. Good. So let's save that and try it out. So now we want to make a put request. Let's go back to here where we did the add. let's do a put to, let's say, /1. And in the down here, oh, I'm sorry, up here in the body, let's say this is going to be, well, I guess we could do 3. Let's say /3. We'll say product 3 updated, just so we know that it actually got updated. We'll change the price as well and send. Okay, so we get back an error, cannot read property name of undefined. Let's see what we did here. Cannot read name of undefined. So let's see. Our product is the body value. Product dot name property name of undefined. So let me just check, let me just make a GET request here. I'm not sure where the problem is. Maybe you guys can see it. So our product should be coming from the body value. Oh, request body is a function. So it didn't know this product must have been undefined because we didn't have the parentheses here. So it should work now. So let's go ahead to our put and send. And there we go, product 3 updated. If we go back to our get and we click send, you can see product 3 updated and the price updated. All right, so the last thing we have to do is the delete. So let's go down to our delete, and we need to make this asynchronous. And before we were just doing a simple filter because again we were working with a static array. We can get rid of that. And first we want to check to see if it exists. So I'm actually going to copy from the update the same thing we did right here. We awaited the get product and then we checked the response. So I'm going to just copy this down to this else, to the opening of this else, and paste that in here and just close that else. Okay, and then we want to delete, so we want to, let's do a try catch. Error. Finally, did we end? Yeah, we did here. So I'm just going to grab that. We'll also grab the error. Put that in the catch. All right, so in the try here, we want to await client connect. As you can see, it's a very similar pattern that we're doing here. And then create our result. So the result is going to be the query, so await, or the result of the query. So query, and this time we're deleting, so we want to say delete from the products table where the ID is equal to a placeholder, and then that placeholder will be replaced with params.id. Okay, and then that'll delete it. So what we want to do after that is send our response, which will be success true. And then as far as what else you want to send, I mean, we deleted it, so I'm not going to send any data. I'm just going to send a message, and we'll just say product with ID params.id has been deleted. All right, and then as far as the status, let's say response dot status, and we'll set that to 204, which is no content. All right, let's try that. We'll save. Okay, now we want to do a delete, so I'm going to say delete. Let's do products 3, send that. So product with ID 3 has been deleted. Now we'll check it here. We'll send, and now you can see it's been deleted. And if you want to double check it, you can go to your PG admin and you can see there's no more product 3. All right, so we've done quite a bit here. We added the Denon functionality, which has been really cool that we don't have to, keep resetting the server like we did in the first video. And then we added all of our database functionality, and we no longer need this array up here, which I'm going to get rid of. So this products array, we can get rid of that. We don't need this version, this thing that we use to generate IDs, and we should be all set. Okay, so I think that wraps this up. In the next part of this little series, I want to implement authentication. So we'll get into JSON web tokens and stuff like that in the next part of this video or this series. All right, thanks guys, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.